Thank you for taking some time for yourself. And I wonder if you can direct your attention to your chest, expanding, relaxing. Close your eyes as you go deeper into this experience. Now I'm curious if you've noticed the perfect regulation of your breath, the order of your body in the chair, the distribution of your posture, supporting you to go deeper. And I'm curious if you can dominate this relaxing experience. Shoulders relax, arms, legs, muscles relaxing. The containment of your breath, the backs of your legs on the chair, your feet on the floor, reining you into this experience. And I wonder if one side of you is more relaxed than the other, a side more strong than the other, more graceful than the other. The inside, the outside, one side, the other side, both sides, your side, someone else's side, everyone's side, both sides, no side. The start of your breath, the endlessness of your breathing, the air in the room, the air outside the room, the air not in the air, the air that isn't air, the air that becomes air, the solids that become liquid, the liquid that becomes gases, the gas that becomes light, and until the end of time, there'll never be anyone else exactly the same as you. And since the beginning of time, no one else has your lightness, strength, grace, your way of wading through life's baloney. That's how special you are. And in the past, you've been feeling anxious or worried, concerned, or something else. and anyone in your situation would understand. But it's got nothing to do with you. There's a process to it, and I really don't know if you can remember a time as a small child when you decided that was mine, this is yours, or it had to be explained to you. Not everything could be yours. Or maybe playing a board game like Monopoly. That satisfying feeling, that's yours. But this is mine. And games have boundaries. Society has boundaries. Countries have boundaries. Mountains, oceans, vast flat lands, rivers, ideal temperatures, idyllic landscapes, all shaping the borders. And patriotic feelings of that's my country. This is your country. And then there are the boundaries of space, where no one kinda says, that's my planet. That's your planet. Just like the sun and the moon, the air, and how absurd it would be to say to someone beside you, that's my air. This is your air. And in a moment, I'm going to share with you a few stories. And at first, you might be thinking, why am I sharing with you these stories? But your subconscious mind will be listening and do something wonderful for you a little later on. And it reminds me of Simon Sharma in his book, The Face of Britain, describing the first National Portrait Gallery. It was the first time that any country house owner had made their house a tourist attraction. And there it was, 50 miles from the capital, London, in Buckingham. A vast arch 60 foot high and wide, as though it was from Rome. And down the road, huge equestrian statue of George I. Beautiful lawns and trees. But it meant so much more than that to Lord Stowe, Viscount Cobham. It was hoped the British public would be educated in the admirable history of liberty, at least as he saw it in the mirror of his own life. The chronicles of the past and the immortals who personified its special destiny. All his life he had been a soldier for the Protestant cause, which as far as he was concerned was the exact same thing as the battle for freedom. And the family went back many generations to the Puritan temples, who had farmed sheep in Warwickshire. A flourishing wool trade allowed them to keep their estate along with the parliamentary seat in Buckingham. Battlers of liberty. And from 1711, these freedom fighters would decorate with grandeur. Viscount Cobham married an heiress to the biggest brewing fortune in England, the Anchor Brewery in Suffolk. And Cobham outside the army was his drum-beating national pride, an international classical taste. His architect apprentices had spent their years in Rome. And Cobham was a patriarch of a group of dissident Whig politicians. Their foe was Sir Robert Walpole, who cleared out the Tories and caused the prosperity of their class. But now it was decided he was behaving like an arrogant oligarch. And he created a team with his friends and family and the Prince of Wales, who would go into bitter opposition against his father, King George II. His team was known as Cobham's Cubs, defending the empire against the French, and for the country to not stray against sacred Protestant principles of the evolution of 1688. And his gardens would be a statement about the right course of British history for future and present generations. And today, for 538 quid, you can buy 4 nights in Gibbs's Gothic temple of Anglo-Saxon freedom. You can go to bed with Cobham's Anglo-Saxon ancestors parading on the ceiling, the lesson in the garden with 3 key lessons, key structures in the right order, where first you see a ruin, the temple of modern virtue, and then around the corner, Kent's temple of ancient virtue, with carvings of Socrates and Homer. And then over a bridge to the temple of British worthies, action worthies on one side, figures of the mind on the other, And it reminds me of Chapter 4, The Empire Strikes Back in T.W. Brookings and P.W. Singer's book, Like War, Censorship, Disinformation, and the Burial of Truth. Because information wants to be free, was said at the world's first Hackers Forum in 1984. But it would also be the end of censorship for authoritarian regimes across the world. How could any government compete with a network of self-multiplying information creators and a network of consumers? Any idea would mobilize millions in minutes. And in 1989, a mysterious man known as the Japanese God appeared in Czechoslovakia, arrived at a university and gave Taiwanese modems out for free, and then disappeared, presumably to the covert operations wing of the Japanese embassy. The students used the tech to expand their revolutionary circles. Democracy dissonance, cut off from state media in Serbia, color revolutions, eventually toppled leaders in Serbia, Ukraine, and Georgia. And in 2009, a different movement swept across Iran, where the newspapers were full of blank spaces, where the government had censored all the material, and young people used social media to organize and share the news. In 1 week, 98% of the links on Twitter were posted by Iran. And when the Egyptian government decided to censor events that happened in Tunisia, a Google executive used Facebook to organize a protest in Cairo. And when 85,000 people signed up to march in the protest, Time magazine asked, "Is Egypt about to have a revolution?" Hundreds of thousands of people demonstrated, and the leader they had for 30 years stood down. But another Egyptian revolutionary gave thanks in a different way, naming his first baby girl Facebook. Political unrest soon followed to Syria, Bahrain, Jordan, Libya, and Yemen. Maybe it was the Arab Spring of information. The protests grew faster than the policemen could stamp them out. And it reminds me of Isaac Newton, who was an incredibly odd figure. And you can read about it in Bill Bryson's book, A Short History of Nearly Everything. that Isaac Newton was a solitary, joyless, prickly to the point of paranoia figure. He once stuck a bodkin in his eye socket, a long needle for sewing leather, between his eye and eye bone, just to see what was there. And he would stare at the sun for as long as he could, just to see what would happen to his vision. And upon swinging his feet out of bed in the morning, he would sit for hours, immobilized by the rush of sudden thoughts to his head. He had invented a new form of calculus and didn't tell anyone about it for 22 years. Half his working life was directed to alchemy and wayward pursuits. He would study the floor plan of the lost temple of the King of Solomon in Jerusalem for hours. And when Dr. Haley visited him in 1684, asking what he thought of the supposing force of attraction of the planets towards the sun would be, and Isaac replied he had already calculated it, but that was like having found the cure for cancer and forgotten where you put the magic formula. But as a wise man once said, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. Just like an artist, there are so many different ways to look at things. And you've seen life through a friend's eyes, or maybe a parent's eyes, student's eyes, a teacher's eyes, a child's eyes. And as a wise hypnotherapist once said to a Spanish mother living in America, there are so many cultural boundaries, cultural lines, but to travel between cultures elegantly, it takes a blurring of those lines. Maybe in the past, you've created boundaries for them, and not now. And I wonder how you would love to feel right now. I really don't know if that's swapping nervous for excited, unexpected for surprise, or maybe something else. But what I do know is sometimes you just never know how great things can turn out. But you are so much more than that. You have just given your body the right thoughts, feelings, smells, tastes and sounds from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. And as Dr. Joe Dispenza would mention, every time you have a thought, there is a biochemical reaction in the brain. The brain then releases chemicals to the body, where they act as messengers of the thought. The body complies, creating an exact set of matching reactions, and then the body sends a confirming message back up to the brain that it's now feeling how the brain is thinking. And all of your cells have receptor sites on their exterior surface that receive information outside their boundaries. And when there is a match in chemistry or frequency from an incoming signal from the outside, the cell gets turned on, and you have slowed down your breathing, lowered your heart rate, blood pressure, without me asking that of you. That's how special you are. And someone wise once said, the body is a temple. And in a moment I want you to build your temple with the right geography. Now, I don't know if you'll need mountains of protection, rivers so things can wash away, an abundance of fresh air, a new perspective from different places to view life from. And to quote Buddha, what we are here today comes from our thought of yesterday. Our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind, because maybe in the past you are trying to live in the future. But here you are, enjoying life right now, in the right state for this moment. And you are, little by little, moment by moment, creating the right biochemical changes in your brain, sending those messages to your body, connecting with the right signals that are right for this moment and that moment, deciding to swap those moments for that moment, or go back to this moment in the future. And someone wise once said, it's mind over matter. Or maybe it was, the force will be with you always. And when you're ready to bring your temple back to the external world, if you can stretch out, wriggle your fingers and toes, open your eyes, welcome back. You're perfect just as you are.